The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, but Kiltharion barely noticed them. His great dragon ship cut through space like a silver arrow, silent except for the low hum of the engines. The war was over, or at least this battle was. The alien armada that had terrorized the outer systems for years lay in ruins, scattered across the void. Kiltharion had led the charge, fought tooth and claw, and survived when countless others had fallen. But victory brought no joy. Every scar on his scales, every wound on his body reminded him of what he had lost and what he might have lost. Still, the hardest thought of all was for his children. His twin hatchlings, small and fragile, had been left behind in the sanctuary orbiting a quiet, peaceful world. Kiltharion had entrusted their care to the humans there. Humans. A strange, small species that most dragons considered weak. Yet, in the midst of war, humans had a way of surviving, of finding solutions when dragons were too proud or too stubborn to notice. Kiltharion did not fully trust them, but he had learned painfully that underestimating humans was a mistake. The sanctuary came into view. From orbit it looked untouched, calm. That should have eased Kiltharion's mind, but it didn't. The war had taught him that appearances could be deceiving. He remembered the reports of raids, rogue alien forces striking when dragons were away, and even humans sometimes hiding dangerous secrets. His claws itched, not for battle but for reassurance that his children were safe. Inside the ship, Kiltharion's mind wandered to his twins. He remembered the last time he had seen them, their tiny claws clutching at his scales as they chirped in delight. They had been curious, bold even, and he had hoped they had inherited a spark of courage from him. The thought that they might be alone now in a world that was not safe made his chest tighten. The landing bay doors opened, and Kiltharion descended onto the sanctuary. His massive shadow fell over the ground, and even from this distance, the creatures tending the outer defenses froze. His presence alone commanded attention, the quiet roar of his wings like a warning that the Emperor had returned. He moved carefully, each step deliberate. Every corner of the sanctuary was familiar, yet he scanned it as if seeing it for the first time. Broken walls, repair marks, patches of metal, all evidence that something had happened in his absence. Kiltharion's ears twitched, listening for signs of life. Not enemies. His children. A soft sound reached him then, a quiet, rhythmic noise. It was not the hiss of an alarm or the clanging of machinery. It was something smaller, gentler, almost human. Kiltharion paused, his sharp eyes narrowing. He followed the sound down a hallway lined with observation windows, each showing the empty corridors of the sanctuary. And then he saw it. Two small forms, curled together on a pile of soft blankets. Their scales glimmered under the soft light. His children were asleep. Sick. His chest surged with relief, and then his eyes widened in disbelief. Cradling them, a human sat on the floor, small and unassuming, yet holding them with care and confidence that Kiltharion had never expected. The human's arms moved gently, adjusting their little bodies, humming something soft, almost like a lullaby. The twins stirred slightly, reaching for the human, nuzzling into the warmth. Kiltharion froze. He had imagined every possible scenario, every threat, every betrayal, but never this. A human, protecting his children? Risking everything while he fought across the stars? Part of him wanted to roar in anger, to demand answers, to remind this small creature that the Emperor of Dragons did not tolerate outsiders meddling with his kin. But another part, buried deep under the layers of battle-hardened pride, felt something he could not name. Respect. Gratitude. The human had not just survived here. The human had protected, nurtured, and loved his children in ways Kiltharion had only imagined. He stayed in the doorway, silent, watching. His mind raced with questions. Who was this human? How had they managed such courage? And most importantly, how had they earned the trust of his children so completely? Kiltharion had returned from war a victor, covered in the glory of battle. But standing here, witnessing this simple, quiet act of bravery, he realized that some victories were far greater than any war won with fire and claw. This small human had done what he, the Dragon Emperor, could not, kept his most precious treasure safe. The wind from the open doors brushed his scales, carrying the faint sound of the human's humming. Kiltharion exhaled slowly, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside him. War had taught him discipline, strategy, and ruthlessness. But it had never prepared him for this. A lesson in humility, in trust, and in the unexpected strength of humans. He stepped forward, his massive claws silent on the floor. The human's head turned slightly, eyes widening, but Kiltharion made no sudden move. He would not scare them. Not yet. First, he would watch and understand and learn the story of how this small, fragile creature had done the impossible. And somewhere deep inside, Kiltharion knew that this was only the beginning. The war might be over, but the real challenge, trusting a human bridging two worlds, was just beginning. Cashin's heart pounded as he felt the massive presence in the doorway. He froze, his arms tightening around the dragon twins. He had been careful, cautious, knowing that one wrong move could bring the Emperor himself down upon him. But now the Emperor was here, taller and more terrifying than any description he had ever heard, wings folding behind him like shadows in motion. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean any harm, Cashin whispered, though his voice barely carried in the large hall. His palms were sweaty, and the twins squirmed slightly as if sensing the tension. Cashin adjusted them gently, letting them rest against his chest. Their soft breathing was a comfort, but it also reminded him of the risk he had taken every single day. It had not been easy keeping dragon children alive. They were born fierce, curious, and fragile at the same time. Their scales could harden, their teeth could bite, and yet they were vulnerable to even the simplest sickness or accident. Cashin had learned quickly. He had repaired broken wings, cleaned wounds, and soothed nightmares. He had worked day and night, often sleeping only when the twins were settled and safe. Cashin thought back to the attack that had nearly destroyed the sanctuary months ago. Rogue alien forces had slipped past outer defenses, setting fires and cutting power. He had run through smoke and debris, dragging the twins to hidden chambers he had built in secret. He had rigged traps and warning devices, sometimes using scraps of alien tech he barely understood. Every step, every choice had been a risk, but he had succeeded. He had never expected recognition for his efforts. Humans were outsiders here. Some dragons saw them as weak, small, unnecessary. Others tolerated them, but always with suspicion. Cashin had not minded. He had cared for the twins because it was the right thing to do. He had stayed awake during storms, repaired broken walls, and even fed the hatchlings special formulas that only he knew how to prepare. Each moment had been an act of survival, and each day had tested his courage in ways he had never imagined. And now the Dragon Emperor himself watched him. Cashin's legs trembled, but he held the twins steadily. They were small, soft, innocent, so different from the massive, terrifying creatures outside the sanctuary. Yet the Emperor's eyes, sharp and glowing, were fixed on him. Cashin could feel the weight of judgment, the silent question. Why is this human here? How dare they touch my children? He took a deep breath. I kept them safe, he said quietly. When the attacks came, his voice faltered, but he steadied it. I did what I could. I repaired what broke, and I watched over them. The twins stirred again, reaching toward him. One nestled against his neck, eyes half open, sleepy and trusting. Cashin smiled softly, even as fear gnawed at him. That small gesture, the trust of a dragon child, was all the reward he needed. Humans had their strengths, yes, but this connection, this trust between species felt greater than any battle. Kiltharion stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Cashin noticed every detail, the way his scales shimmered under the lights, the low rumble in his throat, the way his eyes glowed like molten gold. Every dragon in history had feared him, and now Cashin understood why. But he did not flinch. He held the twins tighter, and in that simple act, he hoped the Emperor would see his courage. You are human, Kiltharion said finally, his voice deep and echoing. And yet you hold my children as if they were your own. The words were more a statement than a question. Cashin nodded, swallowing hard. Yes, he said simply. I kept them safe. I didn't know if anyone would come back. I only knew they had to live. The Emperor's eyes softened slightly, but the tension remained. Cashin could sense the battle within him. The pride of a dragon, the fierce need to protect his bloodline, and now, something unexpected. Respect. Curiosity. Perhaps even awe. Cashin took a small step back, careful not to offend, and adjusted the twins. They yawned and shifted, then nestled closer. One opened his tiny mouth in a soft chirp, and Cashin laughed quietly. The sound broke some of the tension, a reminder that life continued even after war, even after fear. You have been brave, Kiltharion said at last. More brave than I expected of a human. You have my respect. Cashin's heart leapt. He had never imagined that an emperor of dragons would speak these words to him. I only did what I had to, Cashin said. They are your children. I could not let them die. A long silence followed, filled with the quiet breaths of the twins and the hum of the sanctuary. Kiltharion studied him carefully, measuring his courage, his loyalty, his heart. This human was small, fragile in body, but enormous in spirit. Perhaps humans were not just survivors. Perhaps they could be something more, something dragons could depend on in ways no other creature could. Cassian exhaled slowly, letting his body relax a fraction. The Emperor was still watching, still assessing, but the fear that had gripped him for weeks began to fade. For the first time he dared to hope. The twins stirred once more, chirping softly. Cassian smiled down at them. The Emperor stepped closer, and for the first time, Cassian realized that trust could be built, not through fear but through courage, loyalty, and care. He had risked everything, and now, perhaps the bonds he had forged would mean something more than survival. Kiltharion extended a claw slowly, careful not to threaten. Cassian held the twins higher, allowing the Emperor a view. The dragon studied them, then looked at Cassian. For the first time, the war hero felt a sense of peace, not from victory over enemies, but from the quiet, steady courage of a human who dared to love and protect what dragons valued most. And somewhere deep inside, both of them knew that this was only the beginning. The war had ended, but a new story, of trust, courage, and the strength of humans, was just beginning. The air in the sanctuary trembled as Kiltharion's great wings stretched and folded behind him. Even without moving, his presence filled the room, casting long shadows over walls and corridors. Guards who had followed him froze in awe, knowing the Emperor had returned not just victorious from war, but alive, and in one piece. That was rare enough to make even the bravest shiver. Cassian tightened his hold on the twins. His heart pounded in his chest, louder than the hum of the sanctuary's life support systems. He had expected dragons, yes, but not the Emperor himself. And certainly not like this, towering, majestic, and terrifying all at once. Every instinct told him to back away, to bow, to submit, but he could not. Not while the children depended on him. Kiltharion's golden eyes swept the room, scanning every corner, every shadow. His gaze paused on the twins. They were asleep, soft and small, unaware of the danger that had followed their father across the stars. Relief surged briefly through him, but it was fleeting. His eyes then locked onto Cassian, and the Emperor's expression changed. Confusion. And beneath it all, a hint of something he had not expected, curiosity. Human, Kiltharion said, his voice low and resonant, echoing through the hall. Step forward. Cassian froze. Could he move? Could he even speak? He swallowed, tightened his grip on the twins, and obeyed. His legs felt like lead, but he stepped forward anyway. Courage was not about the absence of fear, it was acting despite it. Cassian had learned that in countless battles, in countless small moments, and now, facing the Emperor himself, that lesson mattered more than ever. Kiltharion's massive claws flexed slightly, but he made no aggressive move. Instead, he leaned down, eyes narrowing as he studied Cassian. You hold my children, as if they are your own. Why? Cassian's voice was steady, though his heart raced. Because they needed me. They were alone, and I could not let them die. The Emperor's eyes widened slightly. The words were simple, yet they carried weight. Across the stars, dragons had fought wars for honor, for territory, for revenge. But here was a human, small, fragile, and utterly fearless, risking his life for creatures far larger, far more powerful than himself. Kiltharion's mind struggled to comprehend it. You dare? Kiltharion's voice caught, as if unsure whether to roar in anger or marvel in amazement. Cassian held the twins closer, feeling the warmth of their scales against his chest. They stirred, blinking their small golden eyes at the towering figure. One of the twins chirped softly, reaching toward Cassian. Kiltharion froze, watching the scene unfold. The Emperor had seen many things in his long life, many acts of courage and defiance, but this was different. A human had not only survived in the heart of dragon territory, but had nurtured and protected his children. The audacity, the selflessness, it was unlike anything he had witnessed. Cassian swallowed and continued, voice low but firm. They are yours. I only helped them live until you returned. I repaired the walls, I patched the defenses, He paused, unsure if words could convey all he had done. I did everything I could. Kiltharion's gaze softened, though his golden eyes still burned with intensity. The silence stretched. The Emperor's mind raced with thoughts. Fear, anger, wonder, respect. He remembered leaving his children in the sanctuary thinking they would be safe, believing humans were too weak, too fragile to help them. Yet here was living proof of human courage, ingenuity, and loyalty. You risked your life for them? Kiltharion asked, voice quieter now, tinged with disbelief. Yes, Cassian said simply. Because they are children. Because they had no one else. I could not let them die. A long pause followed. Kiltharion lowered his massive head, close enough that Cassian could feel the heat from his breath. He studied every detail, the way Cashin's eyes did not waver, the steady hold of the twins, the calm courage that belied his small size. It was a strength the Emperor could respect, even if he did not fully understand it. Humans, Kiltharion murmured almost to himself. I have fought them, ignored them, doubted them. Yet you prove that courage does not depend on size or strength. You prove that loyalty and love can protect even the weakest. Cashin blinked. No dragon had ever spoken to him like this. Usually they were cold, distant, proud. Yet now the Emperor's words were almost warm. Almost like recognition, like understanding. He let himself breathe a little easier, though he did not lower the twins. The twins stirred again, chirping softly. One nuzzled closer to Cashin, another yawned and stretched, tiny claws reaching out. Kiltharion watched in silence, awe and disbelief battling with his natural instincts to assert dominance. Slowly, carefully he extended a claw, not to touch, not to strike, but to measure, to acknowledge. Cashin held the twins higher, giving the Emperor a clear view. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Kiltharion exhaled slowly, a low rumble that was almost a sigh. You are braver than I expected. Perhaps more than any human I have known. Cashin swallowed, nodding. I only did what I had to. I could not fail them. The Emperor's eyes softened further, though the fire within them still burned. Perhaps this is the beginning of something new. A human protecting my bloodline. A lesson I did not know I needed. For the first time the Emperor seemed less like a conqueror and more like a father. He watched Cashin carefully, his heart quietly shifting. War had taught him strength, power, and fear, but now he understood something else. Courage, loyalty, and love could come from the smallest, most unlikely places. And in that silent moment, both dragon and human knew that the story of the twins, and of their unlikely protector, was only just beginning. Kiltharion lowered his massive head, golden eyes fixed on Cashin. The twins stirred in the human's arms, yawning and stretching, but they made no sound beyond soft chirps. The Emperor's presence filled the room like a living shadow. Cashin could feel the heat from his scales, the barely restrained power beneath every movement. Yet Kiltharion did not strike. He simply stared, waiting, thinking. Tell me everything, Kiltharion said, his voice deep and steady, carrying both command and curiosity. I want to know how a human came to hold my children, alive, safe, and untouched by the dangers that surround them. Cashin swallowed, feeling his pulse quicken. He had rehearsed no speeches, had no strategy for speaking to the Dragon Emperor. But he did not hesitate. When you left for war, I was assigned to watch over them. At first, it seemed simple, feeding them, cleaning their chambers, keeping them safe from minor threats. But then the attacks came. Kiltharion's eyes narrowed. Attacks. Yes, Cashin continued. Aliens, raiders, even rogue dragons. I had to think fast. I built traps, repaired broken walls, rigged warning systems. I used whatever I could find, technology from the ships, scraps of equipment, even ancient devices the sanctuary had stored. Every day I risked my life. The Emperor's gaze softened slightly, but the intensity did not leave his eyes. You risked your life for them? For my bloodline? Cashin nodded. I didn't care about bloodlines. They were small, helpless. They could not fight. I had to protect them. I didn't know if anyone would return from war, so I kept them alive as best I could. Kiltharion remained silent for a long moment. His mind ran through memories of war, of strategy, of battles fought across the stars. He remembered every loss, every sacrifice, every life he had failed to save. And now, before him, was proof that courage could come from unexpected places. That strength was not only measured in fire and claw. You did not falter, Kiltharion said finally. Even when danger was near. Even when the odds were impossible. Cashin shook his head slightly. I faltered. Many times. I was scared. I almost failed once when the raiders breached the outer walls. But I kept trying. I thought about them, about the twins. That's what kept me moving. That's what kept me alive. Courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about acting anyway. The Emperor's eyes softened further, but a shadow of doubt lingered. He had lived for centuries, trusted only dragons, relied on their strength, their loyalty. And yet here was a human, small and fragile, displaying loyalty and courage that even some dragons lacked. Kiltharion could not ignore it. He could not deny the evidence before him. You speak well, he said almost to himself. But words are not enough. How did they trust you? How did you earn their confidence so quickly? Cashin glanced down at the twins. One nuzzled against his shoulder, eyes half closed. The other yawned and chirped softly. They trust me because I never lied to them, never let them feel unsafe. I feed them, care for them, play with them. I show them that someone will always protect them. That is how trust grows, even with dragons. Kiltharion exhaled slowly, a low rumble that echoed through the hall. I have underestimated humans for too long. I believed your kind weak, fragile, limited. But you have shown me something I did not expect. Strength. Loyalty. A willingness to risk everything for another being. Perhaps, you are more valuable than I thought. Cashin swallowed hard. The Emperor's words were not praise, not yet, but they were recognition. In a world where humans were often dismissed, ignored, or feared, recognition from a dragon emperor carried weight beyond any medal or reward. The twins stirred again, chirping and stretching. Kiltharion reached out a claw slowly, careful not to startle them. Cashin held them higher, allowing the emperor to see their tiny bodies, soft scales, and trusting expressions. The gesture was simple, yet full of meaning. The emperor was beginning to understand the depth of Cashin's courage, not just in surviving but in nurturing life, protecting it against impossible odds. You have saved them, Kiltharion said at last. Not just from enemies but from neglect, from danger that even I could not foresee. You have acted where dragons might have failed. Cashin felt a warmth in his chest, relief mingled with pride. He had done nothing extraordinary, only what was right. Yet here, before the mightiest dragon alive, it mattered. He had proven that humans could fight, could endure, could protect, even in ways dragons could not. Kiltharion's golden eyes held him for a long moment. Then the Emperor exhaled again, slower this time, a sigh of understanding and something approaching respect. Perhaps humans are not just allies, he said quietly. Perhaps they are something more. Something essential. Cashin nodded silently. The tension in the room eased slightly, though the weight of history, of war, of expectation, still lingered. He had survived, he had protected, and he had earned a measure of trust. The Emperor's gaze shifted to the twins again, and for the first time, Cashin saw a softer side of the legendary warrior. A father, concerned and protective, yet willing to see beyond pride and fear. It was a revelation. Strength was not only measured in fire and claw, but in courage, loyalty, and love. And in that quiet, tense hall, both human and dragon understood that the war was over, but a new chapter, a story of trust, bravery, and cooperation, was just beginning. Kiltharion stepped fully into the room, his massive wings folding behind him with a soft rustle. The twins chirped softly, stirring in Cashin's arms, but they made no sudden movement. The human had not faltered under the Emperor's gaze, and now Kiltharion realized just how remarkable that courage had been. You have risked your life for them, Kiltharion said quietly, golden eyes locked on Cashin. And not once but countless times. You have protected my children when even I could not be there. That is no small thing. Cashin lowered the twins slightly, allowing Kiltharion a better view. I did what anyone would do if they had the chance, he said simply. I didn't think about honor or rewards or who I was helping. I just knew they had to live. The Emperor studied him, head tilted slightly. And yet, few humans would act as you have. Most would run. Most would leave them to fate. You are different. Cashin shrugged. Maybe. I just believe that courage is not measured by size or strength, but by what you are willing to risk for those who cannot defend themselves. Kiltharion's gaze softened further, and he allowed himself a small nod. Then perhaps there is more to humanity than dragons have understood. You have shown me that courage, loyalty, and intelligence can come from the smallest of beings, not just the strongest. The twins wriggled and chirped again, reaching for Kiltharion. He lowered his massive head slowly, careful not to frighten them, and sniffed them gently. Their tiny bodies were warm against his scales, soft and trusting. The Emperor felt a wave of relief, mixed with pride, mixed with awe. He had returned from war expecting loss, expecting fear and perhaps even betrayal. Instead, he found trust and courage where he had never expected it. Cashin, Kiltharion said finally, his voice calmer now, you have earned more than my respect. You have earned my trust. From this day forward, you will not merely be a caretaker for my children. You will serve as an advisor to the dragon lineage. Your insight, your courage, and your loyalty are needed here. Cashin blinked, shocked. Me? An advisor? Yes, Kiltharion replied, his golden eyes steady. You have proven that humans are not to be underestimated. That your strength lies not in size or scale, but in intelligence, adaptability, and bravery. You have shown that humans can do what dragons sometimes cannot. That is why I choose to place my confidence in you. Cashin's heart raced. He had never imagined being recognized by a dragon emperor, let alone trusted with such responsibility. Thank you, he said softly. I will do my best. The emperor exhaled slowly, a low rumble echoing through the hall. You already have. And perhaps, together humans and dragons can achieve more than either could alone. The twins chirped again, and this time Kiltharion smiled, a rare, almost shy gesture for a dragon of his stature. He nudged the human gently with the tip of his claw, careful not to hurt him, but enough to show acknowledgement. Cashin smiled back, feeling a bond form that went beyond words. For the first time in years, Kiltharion felt hope, not the fragile hope of war but the steady, enduring hope of trust, of family, of cooperation. The war had tested him, tested the Dragon Empire, and tested the humans who had survived alongside them. But now he saw a new path forward. A path that relied not only on dragon strength, but on human courage. You will remain with us? Kiltharion asked, voice low. You will continue to protect and guide my children? Yes, Cashin replied without hesitation. As long as they need me, I will be here. The Emperor nodded. Then the Dragon Empire is stronger than I imagined. Not just because of dragons but because of humans like you. He looked at the twins again, who were now fully awake, blinking and chirping in curiosity. And perhaps, together we can face any threat the galaxy might bring. Cashin smiled. For the first time he felt more than relief. He felt purpose. He had proven that humans could be more than survivors. Humans could be heroes, protectors, and trusted allies. And the Emperor's recognition was a symbol of what he had always known. Courage could come in any size, from any species, and it could change the course of lives, even the lives of dragons. Kiltharion stepped back, allowing Cashin to hold the twins fully. Watch over them, he said softly. Teach them courage, show them loyalty, and let them see the strength that humans carry. Cashin nodded, holding the twins close. I will, he said quietly. And I'll make sure they know that humans are their friends, and that bravery comes from heart, not size. The Emperor exhaled once more, his massive chest rising and falling. Then perhaps, together, humans and dragons will build a future worth fighting for. Cashin looked at Kiltharion and felt a warmth in his chest. This was more than trust. This was alliance. This was family. The Emperor had returned from war expecting fear and chaos, but instead he found hope, courage, and the undeniable truth that humans could rise to greatness, even in the hearts of dragons. As the sun of the distant world shone through the sanctuary windows, Kiltharion and Cashin watched the twins play. It was a quiet moment, simple yet profound. And in that quiet they both understood. The war had ended, but a new story had begun. A story of courage, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between human and dragon. And somewhere deep inside, both the Emperor and the human knew that together, they could face whatever the stars would send next.